Room 305 doesn't come up in conversations at check-in. But the staff, the regulars, know, and those who don't usually find out late into the night. Back in the 1940s, long before smartphones and technologies, Room 305 was rented to a quiet woman who lived there for several years. No friends visited. No one knew her name. Housekeepers said she was polite but strange. Her curtains were always drawn, yet she would sit by the window all day, rocking slowly in an old wooden chair she brought herself, staring out at the street below like she was waiting for someone who never came. And then, one morning, she died. Peacefully, they said. Still seated in that same chair, still facing the street. It was supposed to end there. It didn't. Decades passed, but Room 305 never stayed quiet. Guests began reporting something unsettling. The chair she died in, the one removed after her death, seemed to return. Not visibly, not physically, but in presence. It started subtly. Some would hear the faint creak of wood late at night. A rhythmic shift, creaking sound coming from the corner of the room. They'd turn on the light. Nothing. The chair was empty, or wasn't there at all. But for others it escalated. One guest, a traveling salesman, checked in after a long day. Around midnight, he called the front desk, panicked. He said the chair in the corner was moving, rocking so hard it was nearly tipping over. But when staff arrived, the room was still. The man was shaking. He swore he'd seen someone sitting in it, but couldn't remember their face. Another woman woke up to find the chair turned toward her bed, still rocking. She hadn't noticed it the night before. She locked herself in the bathroom until sunrise and refused to spend another night there. Some guests tried moving the chair to the hallway. It would be back inside by morning. Maintenance eventually removed the chair completely, placed it in the hotel basement and locked the storage room. That should have been the end of it. But the next day, a housekeeper unlocked Room 305, and the chair was sitting in the corner, facing the window, rocking gently. Over time, they chained the chair to the floor to stop it from moving. That helped, a little. But guests still report strange things. The sound of footsteps pacing in the room above, when there's no one booked above them. Sudden cold spots by the window. A pressure like someone's watching them from the chair, even though it doesn't move anymore. Some swear they see the outline of a woman sitting there just before falling asleep. Just faint enough to doubt, just vivid enough to remember. Locals say she's still waiting. For who, no one knows. The Moana Hotel had only been open 4 years when Jane Stanford, one of the founders of Stanford University, arrived, seeking refuge behind its grand white columns and ocean breeze. From the outside, it was paradise, elegant, peaceful. Far from the Nob Hill mansion where someone had already tried to poison her just a month before. She had survived that attempt, barely. No one had been arrested. So she came to Hawaii, hoping the sea could wash away the fear that clung to her. But peace didn't follow her. On the night of February 28, 1905, in room 120, Jane took a routine dose of bicarbonate of soda for mild indigestion. Moments later, her body convulsed with an intensity that left her pale, sweating, and terrified. Her secretary rushed to her side as Jane whispered through clenched teeth, "I am so sick. I think I have been poisoned again." She had. The strychnine worked fast. Her limbs stiffened. her jaw locked. Her spine arched unnaturally as waves of pain tore through her. And worst of all, she remained lucid through it. Eyes wide, aware, she died in agony as her body collapsed beneath the weight of the second attempt on her life. This time, there was no survival. The Honolulu autopsy confirmed it. Murder by strychnine poisoning. And yet, for all its finality, her death didn't mark the end. In the years that followed, Room 120 gained a reputation. Quiet at first, then impossible to ignore. Guests complained of drawers sliding open on their own, faucets turning on every night at exactly 11:15 p.m., the time her convulsions began. A bitter metallic scent would rise and vanish in seconds, and always, there was the sense of being watched. Staff whispered about the woman in black. She was seen standing by the vanity mirror, dressed in Victorian mourning clothes, unmoving, staring not at her own reflection, but at something just behind her. Some claimed to hear her humming. Others, a whisper, "This is a terrible death to die." Once, a housekeeper opened the door to find the room completely changed. Furniture pushed to the walls, the bed stripped bare, and on the windowsill, a single silver spoon standing upright. Perfectly balanced. No footprints. No explanation. Jane Stanford's killers were never caught. Her story was brushed aside, sanitized by powerful hands. But Room 120 still remembers, and sometimes, late at night, it reminds the living. By the time the storms rolled in that fall, the Carlton Villa had already begun to rot from the inside. Its grandeur faded, its foundation cracked. The river that once shimmered like a jewel beneath its balconies now whispered something colder. In October of 1903, the Langley family, one of the last to privately rent the abandoned summer estate, moved in for a short holiday retreat. Henry Langley, a wealthy glass magnate from Syracuse, brought his wife Eleanor and their two children, Margaret and Thomas. They stayed in the East Wing, where the light was better and the view stretched endlessly over the river. It was meant to be a week of quiet. Instead, on the fifth night, all four were found dead in the dining hall. No signs of forced entry, no visible wounds, just silence. Their bodies were seated upright at the table, untouched plates of roast duck still warm before them. The children's eyes were open. Eleanor's hand rested on her glass, frozen mid-toast. Henry's jaw was slack, like he had died mid-sentence. The coroner's report listed unknown poisoning, but the local sheriff whispered to reporters off record that the mouths of all four were filled with broken glass shards. None had screamed. None had moved from their seats. It was as if they had swallowed death willingly. The house was sealed, but it didn't stay quiet. In the years that followed, trespassers, vagrants, and even curious college students who broke into the crumbling estate all reported the same things. Always the same things. The sound of clinking glass, the smell of roasted meat, and laughter, high-pitched, hollow, echoing through the halls. A contractor once walked through the dining area and felt a sharp stab in his throat, only to cough and spit up a sliver of glass with no source. Another visitor, filming for a local documentary, caught a single frame of four shadows seated at the table, though the room was empty. The most disturbing account came in 1972, when a local woman claimed she heard a child giggling in the overgrown garden. When she looked up at the villa's shattered windows, she saw a young girl in a tattered nightdress standing behind the glass, mouthing one word over and over: "Chew." Since then, the Carlton Villa has stood untouched. Its staircases collapsed, its walls crumbling, and its dining room sealed with rotted boards. But some say, if you stand by the river on an October evening and the wind is right, you can hear the scrape of chairs against stone and the soft clink of forks on plates, like a dinner party frozen in time. In early 1907, the opulent Seelbach Hilton prepared for what should have been its most romantic affair, a grand wedding. The young bride, glowing with joy, arrived early, her dress pristine, her heart full. The groom, equally smitten, never made it. On his way to the hotel, he met a sudden, violent end, either crushed under a horse-drawn carriage or killed by a fall down a nearby stairwell. The bride received the news just hours before the ceremony. Inconsolable, she wandered the lavish halls in her gown, dragging her veil like a funeral shroud. That night, in a moment of unbearable grief, she opened the elevator doors, then a newly installed marvel, and stepped into the empty shaft, plummeting 10 stories. Staff found her body twisted and broken at the bottom, her gown soaked in blood, the floor slick with tragedy. But her story did not end in death. Since that tragic night, the Seelbach Hilton has become a place of whispers and dread. Guests and staff alike speak of chilling encounters too vivid to dismiss. Late at night, sorrowful sobbing drifts from the elevator shaft. Thin, broken cries that grow louder the closer you get, only to vanish when the doors open to emptiness. Some have reported the distinct sound of fabric rustling behind them, only to turn and find a pale, translucent figure in a shredded wedding dress gliding silently through the halls, her veil trailing like a shadow. Her presence is often marked by a suffocating cold and the sharp scent of faded perfume. The elevator itself behaves like it's possessed, doors opening on their own, descending to the lobby unprompted and stopping at floors that haven't been requested. Those brave enough to ride it alone after dark report the chilling sensation of breath on their neck, the touch of icy fingers brushing their arms, or a heavy weight pressing down as though someone unseen is standing beside them. In several rooms near the original shaft, guests have awoken to find damp footprints leading from the bathroom to the bed, only to disappear at the footboard. Some claim to have seen the bride's face, pale, blood-spattered and twisted with sorrow, reflected in the room's mirrors or staring back from the hotel windows, even when they're several stories high. Lights flicker violently in her presence. TVs turn on by themselves, playing static interrupted by a faint humming. What sounds like a warped version of the wedding march. Hotel staff speak of seeing silverware bent into heart shapes or wedding rings found inexplicably in guest rooms that never held a bride. One housekeeper swears she once opened a closet and found a blood-stained veil neatly folded atop a pile of towels. The Seelbach Hilton, once a symbol of elegance, is now a shrine to sorrow. Its walls carry not just the echoes of a celebration that never happened, but the lingering presence of a spirit trapped in the moment her world ended. The bride did not die alone. She stayed behind, tethered to a love that turned to ash, forever haunting the place where her future was stolen. In the heart of La Fonda Hotel's elegant lobby, blood once stained the polished tile beneath the grand chandelier. It was 1867 when Chief Justice John P. Slough met a violent, unforgettable end. Shot point blank in a heated argument that escalated from legal to lethal in seconds. Witnesses said he staggered, hand to chest, his eyes wide with disbelief, before collapsing with a final gasp. Though his body was buried, many believe his spirit remained, bound to the place where his gavel was silenced by a bullet. Today, that lobby carries more than the weight of history. Guests crossing the floor often pause, unnerved by the sensation of being watched. Some hear the unmistakable sound of spurred boots echoing on the tile, though no one is there. Others spot a tall man in dark robes, unmoving near the front desk. He says nothing. His cold gaze meets yours with a knowing emptiness. And then he vanishes. The lights above the staircase flicker when no one is near, and the security cameras occasionally catch shadows slipping through empty rooms. Elevators arrive on the lobby floor with no passengers. Locals whisper that it's the judge, still descending for a verdict he'll never reach, stuck in a loop where law and death collided. But Slough isn't La Fonda's only restless soul. In the hotel's courtyard, a fountain bubbles quietly, a beautiful centerpiece that masks a dark history. It was once the mouth of an old well. Decades ago, a traveling salesman, ruined by a single night of bad gambling, ended his despair by throwing himself into that very well. His body was never found, and according to many, neither was his peace. At night, the courtyard turns strange. The air grows cold. The fountain water begins to ripple as if disturbed by unseen hands. And then, from the depths, he rises. A gaunt, drenched figure in suspenders, his face pale and twisted in silent agony, clambers from the water, his limbs jerking as if fighting to breathe. His mouth opens as if to scream, but only silence escapes. Water drips steadily onto the stone, each drop echoing louder than the last. Some guests see him only for a flash, just long enough to feel the terror behind his eyes. Others hear the wet squelch of footsteps retreating into the dark, and a few have awoken to find their shoes soaked, despite never stepping outside. The La Fonda Hotel is a jewel of Santa Fe, historic, timeless, and elegant by day. But when night falls, the past returns. The dead do not rest here. They wait. These hotels hold more than memories. They hold restless shadows. Whispers echo through empty halls, and cold breath grazes your skin. In the dead of night, the past awakens, watching, waiting. Thank you for watching and listening. See you soon with more stories. Till then, stay well and stay safe.